Okay, thank you for joining me. Another opportunity to have a review on some great equipment. And today we're going to not as much review, but the idea is to take better photos and video. You really have to know your camera, how your camera thinks, how it operates, so that you're able to have complete control over everything out in the field or on vacation or on a job or an assignment. And so it's real critical that you know your camera inside and out. And so let's take a look. Today we're going to look at this Sony a6500. It's not a brand new camera, but it's a fantastic camera. And this camera's been out for a while, but it's just absolutely a marvelous camera. There's some pros, there's some cons, just like every camera has. You know, there's no perfect camera out there that you don't have to make some adjustments or wiggle around some of their features. But as far as an affordable camera, really high quality build. This camera's like a tank for being so tiny, really built well. It's just a really fantastic camera, and one of the main features of this camera is, of course, the size and being small. You know, this is a relatively small build and will fit in anybody's hand, but the idea is that the autofocus is just fantastic. If just as a for instance, if I move this camera away for a minute, you're going to see that and bring it back into the scene, it focuses very quickly and silently. And so with this camera, let's take a look at on here. What's on here now is this 18-105 lens, which is really your best all-purpose lens for video work, allowing you to do the most things. Of course, on the front here is a hood. It's a removable hood. Oops, hold on. There we go. It's a removable hood and standard hood, kind of like a bayonet mount, although they don't call it that. I do have on here a B+W filter, just a clear protection filter on the front. Might even be a UV filter, but basically just clear. That just cut out some of the ultraviolet rays. Kind of a good standard lens, doesn't weigh very much. The main thing here is let's take a look at some of the features. So on this side, it's got a little push and pull here. That opens up to a mic connection. This is your HDMI. It's like a micro HDMI to an all-purpose. One of the great things about this all-purpose plug is that you can actually take a portable battery, such as this, and power the camera for a long period of time by having it plugged into here. Really nice feature. I have used that a lot, especially on the video stuff where it really drains the battery. That brings me to the battery compartment, which is here. And it's got a little blue push it down battery pops out. That's also where your SD card is in here. One of the downsides about this particular camera, even though it is fantastic, is that the battery ability to last is really bad. The batteries are just probably the worst part of this camera. However, as long as you got multiple batteries, if you're going out shooting photos, you don't have to worry about it. It's really more about the video side. And this little guy solves that problem for sure. It's just a little external battery powered pack you can get on Amazon. On the camera, the on and off is up here. It's a toggle. It's got some custom function buttons here, which you can set to be many different things to your liking and how you shoot. Your programs are right up in here. The one that it's on right now, which is determined by a little white dot, is on video. These are the photo settings down here. This is the video setting down here or up here. One thing you'll notice is I've got this little hot shoe adapter on here. And the reason is they have their own proprietary hot shoe. which is not very compatible or compatible at all with anything else but Sony. So if you take a look here, you're going to see that it is its own proprietary. It looks different than your standard hot shoe, both inside with those little pins and on the top with a single pin. And so by placing this this little Pixel TF334, which I got on Amazon, it's only about $25, not very much. Has the standard pin plus these little copper or brass, I'm not sure what that is, probably brass I guess, pins that match up to what is on the hot shoe here. So very careful, they're delicate. Okay, we're going to slide that on there just like you would anything else and lock her down. I actually don't really take it off there because now you'll see that it's a standard hot shoe with the standard connections, and I can fit anything, any of my equipment on there now, in which I could not when it was there. Real easy workaround, very inexpensive, and I use it all the time. So what you'll notice on the back of the camera here is all the modes and function buttons. Some of them are custom functionable. You can actually set them to be multiple things. But let's take a look here. So on the screen pops out in this fashion. It also pulls out and it pivots up and down at a down angle. It does not flip out. This particular one pops out and angles up and down. One thing that's nice, you can see that it comes off of the back of this camera quite far. I can get a couple of fingers back in there, and very necessary when you are shooting, especially in 4K. I think the two things on this particular camera that they have solved on the new ones is that in 4K the camera heats up, and you'll know it because this gets really hot back in here. And one little workaround to that is I have little tiny ice packs that I sit here with a little piece of paper towel during a long 4K shoot, and takes care of that. Really not a big deal. You're talking about a few dollars. But the new camera does not do that. They seem to have been able to overcome that. And so when I'm shooting in 4K, if I'm not shooting long term, I just pull the screen out so that it gets an airflow, and that helps it keep cool just fine. Otherwise, the screen is popped in unless you're going to shoot at a really high down angle, because then you can be way down here low looking up at the camera while it's pointing down. Let's go ahead and turn it on. Okay, turn the dial on. Okay, and you'll see that it takes a second for this screen to come up. And what you're going to notice here is all the different things that the camera is thinking about, or all the different settings that I've chosen on the back of the camera. And so what you're going to do, you've got three main buttons. You've got a menu button, which brings up options for camera settings, brings up different things for wireless and formatting your card and whatnot. You have a function button, and the function button brings up quick functions for quick changing. And let's go ahead and take a look here and see. If I press the menu button, let's go back to the menu button, and I press the select button, which is in the middle. Okay, you've got a dial that rotates, and you've got a button in the middle. That's always your select button. And I'm going to push select, and you'll notice that across the top here you've got the little icons: camera 1, camera 2. You've got what looks like a little signal, 4 boxes, like a little playhead, and maybe some sort of like a little case or something. And so in the first section, you always use up and down, left and right, and select to move around within the menu. And what you're going to do now, if you want to go over to the next one, you use the over button. Okay, you go up all the way to the top where it's only highlighted here, and you use the over, and you can go from one toolbox to the next. Okay, and so from here, if I want to get into these, you go down. So you press the down arrow, and the down arrow lets you go into things. Anything that's grayed out, like you see up here, quality, is not an option you can set. And the reason that is because I'm in video mode. If I was in photo mode over here, excuse me, these would not be grayed out. And so when I'm in this first little tool here, camera 1, You just go down until there's nothing else you can see. And if I want to go to the next thing, I go up till only it's highlighted, and I go over, and then I go down. And you can see when I want to go into something, so for instance, file format, I press the select button, okay? And now it goes in and allows you the different options to select in the camera. Each one of these things works in that same fashion. So each time you want to go over to the next set of tools, okay, or options, you just go up until it's highlighted, and then it has those things. And you'll see one of two. So if I go down and I go over, that takes me to the second page. Okay, and go back up. And if I go over again, it keeps going tool by tool and all the way into the last tool. Okay, and what you can see here is that it's one of 7. So there's 7 pages in this tool. Okay. Oop, get back over, went too far. So this particular screen, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it on there too well, is a touch screen only for focus. So wherever I touch is where the camera is going to focus. And it's super fast. It is accurate as all get up. It's just one of the best cameras that I've seen in autofocus. It's really, really good. Other than that, the screen is not a touch screen. You actually have to use the display and the functions within the display. And so you can see when I pass my hand in front of the viewfinder, it's got an eye start. You can turn that off and on. Mine's on. So when you put your eye up to it, it switches to the viewfinder. When you take your eye away, it switches back to the screen or to the monitor here. And so once we're up here, this gives me my basic readout of all my settings, and each one of these things are exactly what they say. This is your play button, but it's also a multifunction button. So I can make almost all these buttons be more than one thing depending on what mode I'm in or if I'm shooting photos or video. So for instance, if I hit play now, it's going to tell me there's nothing in there. Okay, can clear that out by touching the shutter release. If I hit garbage can, okay, I have my garbage can set up to be a quick function for video for audio recording level. This is where you would change how much the recording level is, and it gives you your peak meter. Okay, and these are things you would test, of course, before you start recording. And when I press that again, it goes back to there. So now while I'm in the record, I have on the right side over here, I have my ISO, which is a quick ISO setting. And up here is a display, which allows me to clear out the different information or add different information onto the screen as I need it to be. And if I press in the center while I am in video mode, it goes blank, okay? And if I press it again, it comes back. There are times when I need to manually switch between screen and viewfinder or turn the screen off. I've personally set that to, each one of these things I'm showing you, I've set to be custom functions. Okay, same thing up here. You have a button in the middle of this toggle here that toggles up and down. And when I press on it, I have it set to show me manual focus and give me the red peaking so that I can actually see what's in focus at a quick glance. And you can see it show up on that monitor there. Maybe at a closer view. Let's bring it in so you can see that. You see the red show up. So I have that set as a custom function. Okay. So again, with this camera, not only do you have the two built-in custom function 1 and custom function 2 buttons, but you have multiple buttons down here that you can also go into the menu and set as custom functions. So depending on how you work, I happen to work in a fashion that I need certain things to be quick changes when I'm out there, and I can just do it quickly on the fly, and it takes me right to that function. I don't have to go into menu and search for it. These are just set up to be quick function buttons for me and how I work. You would have to go in and set that up for yourself, but once you figure out what your needs are, you got to go out and shoot a little bit and decide, okay, well, I always need to get to my ISO, or I always need to get to my audio. Well, trash can be a custom function 3 button, and I can make it a quick audio adjustment and then adjust my audio left and right to go up and down the slider where I need it to be. And of course that's generally somewhere between -12 and -6 dB. And so we'll go back. And as a whole, if I go to the menu button and I go over, it's simply taking me to each one of these. Go back to menu, wireless settings, there's the wireless settings. Okay, back to menu, go to applications. This one's a little bit different, but it's that little 4 square thing. This is where you can add some third-party hacks or third-party options into your camera, but be careful there because that may void your warranty. Playback, these are all the playback modes. Okay, setup, that's the little box looking thing. When I'm in there, this is also where I go to find, let's say for instance, if I need to allow the camera to work on, let's see if we can get it in there, to work on a USB power supply. Well, that's what we're using on the camera that we're working on. And of course where I get to format. So there's format, and you'll see that it says format here, okay? And oops, let's get it back into the camera, sorry guys. And when I press the select or enter button, which is here, okay, it says, are you sure everything's going to be erased? So it's kind of a safety thing. So you go up to enter, and then you press select, and it says formatting card. Okay, and that's where it's gonna, you can see its progress bar, and it's formatting the card, says complete. And you can just always touch the shutter release button, which is here. Okay, shutter release button always goes back to take a picture or start recording. And that's also your start recording button. I don't prefer to use this because it's so tiny and you have to touch the camera. If you're not using this this multi-function input and output here, they make a nice, somewhat little inexpensive wired remote control that allow you to clamp it to your tripod or clamp it to something and start it off and on so that you're not touching the camera. That's what I would recommend. On the front here, okay, you'll see this little button here. That's also, it's a push, and when I push it, I can spin the lens off and on. Let me just switch to my good hand. You'll see the white on white right there. Okay, so you line up the two whites, make sure you don't force anything, and you're going to spin it clockwise if it's facing you until you hear it click, and then give it a little tug back and forth, make sure it's secure. On this particular G lens, this lens, like I said, is an 18-105 good all-purpose, and it's an f4 all the way through the lens. And then this is where you toggle for zooming, telephoto and wide. It does it automatically on its own. When you're looking through the camera and you want to focus on something, you just touch the screen where you want it to focus. Okay, and you can also zoom manually, which is this first larger ring right here. You can zoom manually, and it's super smooth, but so is, it is really liquidy smooth when you're using the toggle button. It's really smooth, really nice for video. And then this outer ring is for focus, okay? And currently we're in, let's see, let's go into display for a minute, or no, excuse me, function. And what you'll notice on this particular camera is this camera comes with all your standard settings, you know, from aperture priority, shutter priority, manual, and program, and then the green auto, of course, is always full automatic. Really, you're probably going to focus the majority of the time in manual or in your video mode, and maybe sometimes in shutter priority and aperture priority. For the most part, you're probably not going to be, you know, going to the rest of these things. Okay, and then, oh, one thing, let's bring it back into the camera. Let's see if we can get you to see this. If I touch the screen here, you'll see that the little, let's bring it in super close so you can see this. Okay, even though the image doesn't look good, if I touch the screen over here, I don't know if we can really see that on the screen, not so much, there's glare, there it is. You can actually see the little the little focusing spot move around, and that's it right there. You see that little square box in there. But overall, very sound camera, built very well. Got your standard 1/4-20 for a tripod here. Got your strap connectors here. When I'm shooting video, I don't have the strap on. It really gets in the way and it can make noise and bang and click and whatever. One thing with video here is that you're going to notice in your options that there is no headphone jack. Now, is that a problem? Yeah, as a whole it is, but the workaround to that is when you put a microphone, let's say a hot shoe microphone here, and you plug it in to your microphone jack here, you're going to go into, that's why I have a quick setting here, you're going to go into your audio settings and do a test and adjust your input, volume input to be somewhere between -12 and -6 to be safe. And then you know, even without headphones, that you have great audio. Okay, doesn't mean you can, you may have things in the background or something that you can't hear without the headphones, which is why it's always recommended to have headphones. Some microphones that you attach up here give you a headphone jack right on the microphone, and that solves that problem. So it's really not that big of a deal, but it is something extra that you have to buy. So this is our Sony a6500, and again, I know this is not a brand new camera, but the idea is that it's still a very viable camera and really worth buying. The price is down so much now because there's a new version of this out, but this is just such a great camera. I have shot with it commercially, advertising, national campaigns on TV. It's really a superior little camera. Now, this camera is not a full frame, but mirrorless, and it's mirrorless. I forgot to mention that, but it is the largest APC sensor, which is the largest non-full frame sensor on the market, and I don't think that's changed even with the new one that's out. And so, if it does well in low light, but the larger the sensor, the better the camera does in low light when you got to really open up. And so that's also where this F4 is really nice. It's a great option for this camera. I've got two of these. My second one that I use on the gimbal has a pancake lens, a straight 20mm lens, super fast 1.8 lens, and really tiny little guy, only about as big as that little notch right there. But it's really nice for super low light because I can just open up. Well, anyways, thank you for joining. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned. I'm going to give my little how-to tutorials or walkthrough on many cameras that I own. Thank you very much. This is Bill Mahon, photo, video, multimedia, and drone. And this is the Sony a6500. And until next time, thank you.